Hello everyone and welcome to the Rhino 6 for Mac user interface video. Let's get started by firing up Rhino. Once Rhino starts, you get this pop-up window where you can start a new model or select from an existing one from your hard drive, or you can have a list of your recent models or choose one from the templates. I'll start a new model, which in my case was within millimeters. At the top, you're gonna find the menu bar with all the commands grouped per object type, or you can analyze and transform objects, and of course the usual ones like file, edit, view, window. Right below, we have toggles for turning on and off certain things like ortho drawing, the gumball, and smart tracking. We have also some shortcuts here to view our OSNAPs or our layers. On the left side, we have this left sidebar with the command line where we type our commands. Right below, we have our most common toolbar. And right below, we have the OSNAPs always visible. You can turn them off or on, and you can, when they are on, you can select which ones you want to be active. On the right side, we have our right sidebar. In my case, I have it set up on the top to have my layers and below my properties panel. You might have different options here, and this is based on the selection that you have here. You can activate or deactivate these buttons, and you can also flip this one. So for example, if you want to have the layers below, you can switch this one to the properties panel and switch this one to the inspector. Now they are flipped, but because I'm used to having it the other way around, I'll bring it back there. So by selecting this one, you bring different options here. In the middle now, we have our viewport where we can have 4 different views. By default, you have perspective, top, front, and right. If you double click here, you maximize the viewport. If you double click again on the name, you bring it back to the 4 views. You can drag the line here in between to adjust the size of these ones. And you can also maximize and bring back to the 4 view view here. And you can, when you're in the maximize option, you can also choose which one to display. Now below, we have our command history, where it displays the history of all our commands. So if I type here, for example, line, and I make a line, and then I type circle, and I make a circle. Now in the command history, you can see that I have a line and a circle. You can also go here. This one will disappear, but if you go here, you can have it always on. Now, if you, this sidebar here, you can choose to have fewer panels or more panels. You can go to Rhinoceros, Preferences, Themes, and then now by default it has 2, but you can set it to 3, for example. The change will take effect in the new window. So now if I say new window, the new window will start and will have 3. So for those of you that you want to have the command history always visible, you can have your layers, your properties panel, and then here below you can have your history. So you see line, sorry, history, circle, and you have it down here. Here below, you also see the units and where your cursor is. So if I bring it to 000, you can see down that it's at 000. Now, for the properties panel, if you have no object selected, it shows you the properties of the viewport. Now, to make it a little bit more visible, I'll make a box. Now you see that we have a perspective view, but you can also turn it into a parallel view. Bring it back to perspective, and you can also change the angle of your camera. So I'll make pick up a very wide lens, so you can see how the perspective is very accentuated, or a zoom lens, which is has a less perspective view. I'll bring it back to the default. Now, if I select the object, this panel changes and brings the options or the properties of that object. Here it shows me that it's a closed extrusion, but if I have a line and I select it, here it shows that it's an open curve. I can name it my amazing line, and at any moment in time when you select it, it remembers the name. It shows you the layer, and you can also choose to change the layer. Now it belongs to layer 2, and because layer 2, for example, is purple, now this line is also purple. You can have different line types, dashed or dotted, a different print color. For example, you can say no, print it in black, and the width of the line. That can be a very thin or a very thick line. And down here, you click on the details and you get more info. And for example, for the line, you can see where the coordinates of the start point and the end point and the length of the curve. Now, for those of you that want a bit more space, you can toggle the sidebars off and on. Now, for those of you that wish to have Rhino look more like the Windows version, you can go to Rhino, Preferences, Themes, and then select here Rhino for Windows. I'll bring this one back to 2, and like before, changes take effect for new Windows. So if I open a new window, now you will see that here this one is back to 2, and we have the toolbar like the Windows version. Now let's talk a little bit more about the commands. Here on the command line, you can start typing, and then Rhino will suggest the commands. So for example, I just need to type li, and then it suggests me line or lines. Now I'll choose line. As you've seen, once I type line, here we have more options. Every command has different sub-command options, and you can select them either by clicking the button or by pressing or typing the letter that has the underline. So let's say that we want to make a circle. Now by default, you make a circle with the center and the radius. But if I want to make a circle by defining 3 points, I can click here 3 points, or just type O and enter. And now I can say from here, here, and here. Now, if you want to repeat the previous command, there are 3 ways. You can either just press enter, and now it repeats the previous command. You can also press space, or you can right click, and here you have a list of your recent commands. You can either click here, which will repeat the circle, or if you don't want the circle and you want the one before, you can just press here, and now you make a line. Now let's talk about how you can customize the user interface. You can go to Rhinoceros Preferences, and here we have Aliases, which is a list of shortcuts that will run the command listed here on the right. For example, here you can see that by clicking typing just M, it will run the move command. But for example, there's no shortcut for rotation, but we can add one and say that if we type R, then Rhino will run rotate. And we can add another one that if we type R3, then Rhino will run rotate 3D. Now you see that if I make a box, let me switch to shaded. Now I can type M, and now the move command is active. I can type R, and now I have the rotate 2D. And I can also type R3, and now I have the rotate 3D. Now let's talk about the colors, and I'll bring the box back to a horizontal position. Now if we go to preferences and colors, here you can change different colors of your Rhino, like how the selected objects will look like, the axis, which I recommend that you do not change their color, the background color of your viewports, and several other things. But besides this, we have the display modes. And the display modes are you can select them by right-clicking here, and you can have your wireframe where you can see through objects. So if I make another box and move it, let's say behind, now you can see that it's behind it, but in wireframe mode you can see through it. In shaded, it has a basic shading. Then you can have a render view, which has some basic lighting. And then you can have ghosted, where it's a combination of wireframe and shaded, where you do see the faces of the object, but they're a little bit transparent, so you can see through them. Then you have, forget about these ones. Then you can have the artistic, which, whatever, artistic, looks like a sketch. And then we have Arctic, where it has a basic ray tracing lighting. So let's go back to the shaded. As you can see here, there are the faces have a white color, and the edges are not very thick. But these ones, for example, you can change. I can go display mode, shaded, and now if we go to edge thickness and I put this one to 10, then you saw here that the thickness changed. You have different settings about lighting, about clipping planes, about which objects should be visible and which should not. And what is important is the back face settings. By default, it is use front face color, and I'll show you what that means. So for example, now if I have I'll remove this one. No, I will not remove it. I will just remove this face. Now you see that the front face of this surface and the back, they have exactly the same color. Sometimes it's important to know which one is the front face and which one is the back face. For example, when you want to extrude something, it will extrude along the normal of the face, which is always pointing away from the front side of the face. So in order to distinguish these two, you can come here and change this one to a single color. And now you just pick something which is a very ridiculous color so that you never mix it up with something else. And now, as you can see, these ones now show me that they are the back face of this surface. The same things you can do also for render, for Arctic, and you can also create custom ones like the ones that I have here. You just select which one you want, and you can click and it will duplicate it here. And then you can rename it and do changes. That's it for now. See you on the next video.